to bed than yesterday. So in this episode, I wanted to talk about the things that I've learned over the past nearly 4 years of being a youth leader at the local church that I attend. And the reason that I've wanted to make this video, and I've actually wanted to make this episode for quite a long time and discuss this topic, is simply because I feel that I've learned some of the most valuable life lessons that I've learned in my time here on this earth, simply by being a youth leader for the last, like I said, nearly 4 years. I started as a youth leader in January of 2020, and we started off just before COVID started. Actually, that was when I became a youth leader. I had initially been a youth already at the church for about 4 or 5 years, and then I became a youth leader. And it's been, like I said, one of the most valuable learning experiences of my life. I've learned so much just from the people that I've been on a team with, the amazing team that I work with, and the experience of, showing up every Friday night and leading a bunch of young people to become world changers. And the first thing that I actually learned that I want to start off with, these are just life lessons, like I said, things that I've learned from, being a leader, taking up positions of leadership, necessarily, and just things that have stood out to me, I'd say, over the last however many years. And I know there's probably thousands, or if not hundreds of thousands of people around the world who do a similar thing in terms of leading young people, and I thought this might be something that you might be able to relate to. And if not, again, I think these are just like very valuable life lessons that I've learned from this experience, and you might be able to apply them into your own life. And this is actually the first episode of a series that I want to do, just talking about what I've learned from blank, and it'll be, just talking about different life experiences that we've had. And I think it'll be a cool way for Daniel and I to, bring in the different things that we've learned over the last few years of, just going about life and maybe the unique experiences that we've had. So, first thing that is very important and that I've learned from my period as a youth leader is that of consistency and how important it is to be consistent. So, I'd say this is probably the most important thing about being a youth leader is just being consistent. Simply because you have to be there every Friday night. It's cool to show up, in someone's life, let's say once off, and, be the most amazing person. You might, show up one Friday night and just have so much energy, and you might provide, an insane amount of leadership. You might speak to someone and just, have this word over their lives, and it's amazing. But I think more importantly than that, having this once-off amazing, evening, is to be consistent. So showing up every Friday night, even on the nights when you don't feel like it, and being there, being consistent in someone's life. Again, so part of your job as a youth leader, or part of your what you want to do as a youth leader is you want to disciple young people and just lead them into becoming the people that they can be, the best version of themselves, for Christ as well. And simply, what that looks like is being consistent in their life. So you might meet them one Friday night, and that's great. You might say hi, you're cool, you did the first step well, like you might have, gone out of your way to be nice to them, that's great. And you might have led them well that evening. But if you don't do that on a consistent basis, and you're not consistently showing up on a Friday night, you're that guy who comes, every third Friday, again, this is the kind of thing that is going to stop you from being a good leader. So the very important thing in leadership that I've learned is just consistency, being consistent in someone's life. So you meet someone, get their number, be consistent in their life, like message them every week, if not every week, as often as you can. Be consistent in someone's life. That's how you actually have sustained influence on someone's life, is when you're consistent. You might influence someone somewhat, by, like I said, having a massive impact on them once off, or maybe 2 or 3 times. But if you're consistent in someone's life, and again, this is something that I learned from the guys who were leading me before I became a youth leader. They were just consistent in my life. If I needed someone, they were there for me. And this is what I try to do as a youth leader. And probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned is just showing up every week, being consistent in someone's life, and being there reliably, being dependent. These are some of the most important things. Now, the next thing I want to talk about that I've learned from my period as a youth leader, and I'm sure anyone who's spent time in leading youth can relate, is that you have to have a certain level of energy. Because realistically, when you're spending time with young people, no one wants to be sitting there like, low energy, just, in a depressed state, or perhaps you want to be high energy from the get-go and sustain that energy from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock and however long the evening is. And this literally looks like just having a smile. When you show up, have a smile. Initiating. You can't wait for a young person to come up and say hi to you. That is your job. You got to go up and say hi to them. Be the person to greet. Try and remember their name. I think this is something that is not easy when you're meeting new people, and this you can apply to any period of any factor in life, But remembering someone's name is huge, and it's not easy though. Let's be real. But I think the best way to do it is when you first meet them, try and repeat their name back to them a few times, Daniel. Okay, it's so nice to meet you, Daniel, and can't wait to see you next week, Daniel. Just repeat that kind of name in your head, whatever their name might be, and that's a good way to remember it. But having energy will set you apart, and it allows you to have influence and have leadership once again. Because again, no one's going to look up to someone who shows up and doesn't have energy. And look, it's not easy to have energy every single Friday night. But again, this is leading into my next point. Actually, is that you don't necessarily find the energy just because that's what you want to do. You might want to go home and sleep. You've had a long week, and that's all you feel like doing. But you find that energy because at the end of the day, leadership, and especially youth leadership, you don't do this for yourself. If you're doing everything to make yourself happy, what you would be doing is going home and resting, or maybe working on some project that you have, or maybe going out with your friends. But instead, you're at the church on a Friday night. And again, so the next point that I wanted to talk about is that you don't do this for yourself. And what really gave me this perspective is the fact that, like I said, before I became a youth leader, I was actually one of the youth at the church who was being led by others for about 4 or 5 years, and these guys had a massive impact on my life. The guys who were leading me, simply by, like I said, being consistent in my life, having that energy, and they were just there for me, and they were almost like a friend, but slightly older, which is why I think youth leadership is so important. Is because for a young person, it really does help to have someone who is maybe only just a few years older than you, and you really look up to them because they're in that age that you want to be at. Usually when you're 12, 13, you always want to be I want to be 16, 17, because those are the cool guys, or maybe they're guys who are a little bit older, who have started to get their life together. You're still in school, and you can't wait to be in the period of life that they're in. So you look up to them almost automatically, and these guys, treated me like a friend, even though I was a few years younger than them. And that is exactly what I've tried to do in my time as a youth leader. Not to imitate them, but to emulate what they provided for me, and I can provide that hopefully for others. And the point being is that we don't do this for ourselves. Like I said, if you're trying to make yourself happy, you would be probably doing something else. But think of the people who were there for you in times when you needed someone. And again, they probably could have had better things to do than to sit and listen to your problems and your issues and be there for you as a young kid who's about 4 or 5 years younger than them. But they took the time to spend that time with you, So the reward is not necessarily doing what you want right now, but the reward is the fact that you are having an extremely positive influence on a young person. So just remember that we're not doing this for ourselves, and that's where you'll be able to find that energy, like I was coming to earlier. You'll be able to find that energy because, again, you're not doing this for yourself. Just keep that in mind. I'm not going to smile and be energetic because that's necessarily how I feel, but I'm going to smile and be energetic because I know that it could brighten this kid's day and his life, and actually ultimately bring them to God, which is the end goal, of what we do at Youth Leadership. Again, you want to be there for someone, you want to build a relationship, but at the end of the day, you want them to be building a relationship with Christ, and that can start by the smallest little detail of the way that you act and portray yourself. So, this leads. There's one thing that I wanted to mention as well, and again, I think you can't have energy or be consistent, like I said, without and you can't actually lead from a place where you don't have a good relationship with God right now. So the first step to being a youth leader, and another point that I've learned over the years, there might be some weeks where I'm feeling a bit low energy, let's say, and I almost forget, why I'm doing this, like I mentioned earlier. And that might be you got to be honest with yourself and analyze how much time are you spending on building your personal relationship with God. And if your personal relationship with God is not in the right place, then you will not be able to lead. That's as simple as it goes in church leadership. So you need to prioritize spending time with God every single day, and that looks like reading the Bible, obviously, spending time in prayer, and just getting to know God. If you know God well and you feel like you're close to Him, then that's the kind of space that you can actually lead from. This is just again a thing I've learned from any time where I've had almost a dip in my leadership where I felt like I'm not doing quite well enough. It goes back to the fact that maybe I'm not putting as much effort as I was previously into my personal relationship with God. So point is, your personal relationship with God dictates exactly how much you're going to be able to lead and how effectively you're going to be able to lead. So prioritize that more than anything else. Simply having that personal relationship, and then from that space, you'll actually have your heart filled, and you'll be able to lead others in the church. So that's an amazing thing. And the final point before I talk about how much one can actually have influence, like how you can carry influence, and also how you can wield influence to your advantage in terms of the end goal of what we're trying to do here with youth leadership. But the final point is just being genuine. And I think this is actually the point of how you gain influence. You might be someone who maybe wants to get into leadership and youth leadership, let's say. And I would say one of the main things, like all of those points I mentioned before, very important. But being genuine is something that allows you to have influence, because let's face it, young people actually can smell if you're fake, and they really can. And I remember when I first became a youth leader, I obviously, was influenced by all these guys around me who are on the team. And you can catch yourself trying to almost be like another guy on the team, let's say, and you might be trying to emulate their energy and what they do on a Friday night. And at the end of the day, for leadership, how you actually carry influence on other people is being genuine, because a lot of people struggle with that. Let's be real, it's not easy to be your most authentic self and have no problem with what other people think. But as soon as you do that, you actually carry influence, because being genuine, people can smell it. Again, you might be a pretty decent second-rate version of someone else, but you're never going to be the same as them. You're never going to be as good a version of themselves as they are. So instead of trying to copy what they're doing, just be the best version of yourself. And other people will be able to see that. They will be attracted to it and they will be drawn to it. And that's what's going to allow you to have influence, and a positive influence over others. Again, you want to watch what you're doing, because as much as you want to be genuine, again, this comes back to how your personal relationship with God is. If your genuine self is perhaps not the best, and you actually aren't very close with God, again, this is when you just got to look at yourself and be like, am I in the right position to lead right now? And I've had to take a very honest look at myself quite a few times over the past few years, simply to realize, are my actions aligning with what I'm preaching and what I'm saying, or what I'm trying to lead others to do every Friday night? And if that's not the case, then you're probably not being very genuine, and you're not going to be a very good youth leader. So you're going to have to look at yourself every week and be like, am I actually being someone who is a role model for young people? Am I like leading a life that is worthy of looking up to? And if that's the case, then great. Then live that life out, and people will see it, and you will carry that influence. And that's exactly what youth leadership is about. Is almost being an example for young people, and living that life, showing that example every single Friday night, like I said, on that consistency basis. And that's what's going to allow you to have a very positive impact on young people for a sustained period of time. I think all of these things have allowed me to, I've learned these things the hard way over the last few years, for sure. And I think there's been times, when I didn't show all of these qualities, and that's how I learned it. And I've had people around me to hold me accountable, who have pointed out and be like, Michael, how's your personal relationship with God? Is that something that you're prioritizing at the moment? Again, so these are all things that I've learned on a very practical basis. But that's basically the final thing I wanted to end off with, is basically your influence. Again, how you gain influence is all of these points that I mentioned earlier: being consistent, having energy, your personal relationship with God being in a good place, and being genuine. And also remembering why you do it. Not doing it for yourself, but doing it for other people. I think this will lead you to a place where you will be able to carry much influence, and it's up to you what you do with that influence. If you are doing all of those things, you can have a very positive influence on young people, and they will look up to you. Now you've got that responsibility on your shoulders that young people are currently looking up to you. And it is a responsibility. It's quite a big responsibility to think that a young person might do something or not do something simply because you're doing it or you're not doing it. And that's quite a big responsibility. At the end of the day, you need to keep exactly what the end goal of what you're doing as a youth leader very prominent in your mind. And that should simply be to disciple young people, to equip them with what they need for living a godly life. And at the end of the day, sending them out, you don't want to just give someone a good time on a Friday night. You want to, like I said, prepare them for the next stage of their life that they're going into, adulthood, growing older and learning things in life. You want to simply provide them with all the things that they need to do that with godly values that will set them up well for life. And those are the things that the youth leaders who led me did an amazing job of doing. And that's what I want to do as a youth leader, is to be there for young people, be that person who's there for them when they need someone who's slightly older, can give some good life advice, and at the end of the day, point them towards Christ at every situation and in every moment. So I hope this was an interesting listen. For those of you who maybe found this video who are also a youth leader, let me know if this is something you can relate to. Maybe you've just started to go into youth leadership. I think this would be something valuable for yourself. So that's exactly why I wanted to make this video, is just to dispel some of the wisdom that I've learned, thankfully, that I've been blessed to gain over the last few years. And so this is something that I quite enjoyed talking about, because just life experience that I've gone through and things that I've learned over the last how many years, and who knows how much longer I'll be doing youth leadership for. Lord willing, I've had a positive influence over many young people, and I hope that'll continue as the years come by. But that is it from me, your host, Michael. Unfortunately, I didn't have Dan with me today, but we're going to keep the videos coming out as often as we can. And let me know what you think of this series. I think it's cool to just talk about actual life experiences that Daniel and I have had, and you guys can get to know us better. And again, we can hopefully provide you with information and motivation to be better than who you were yesterday. But thank you so much for listening. I really enjoyed making this video and having this conversation with you guys. Please do continue it down in the comments. And that is it from me. We'll see you very soon for another episode, and much love.